Okay, we wanted to talk about feeding wild birds, and I've nearly finished my wine. Lou, start off while I have the last little bit of my wine.
Well, there are two schools of thought.
Mm-hmm.
One
So
is
true, so
people
true.
do it anyhow, so let's try and get them to use the best food possible. And that is a valid point because I think people do it anyhow, don't they? I mean, it's inevitable. But certainly don't feed them bread.
No, there, no.
No. And
What more can I
you
say?
can buy some good bird mixes from pet shops.
So maybe we should talk about why not to feed bread.
Well, the best thing is not to feed them, of course. The best thing is to plant food for them.
Yeah.
But that's a lot more work than going down the shop, isn't it, and buying some bird seed.
Yeah.
So I think what I would suggest is that you don't feed any birds.
Mm.
Having said that, I did feed the birds after the fires in
As did I.
2020
Yeah.
because they were starving.
Yeah.
So I think that was exceptional circumstances. I think I can be forgiven for that. But really, do not feed the birds because they will suffer from all sorts of illnesses that you can't imagine because the food that you're feeding them is not the food that they're getting in the wild. And they build up a dependency. And it's great. You go to your home and you feed them and they come every day and they expect it. And then you go on holiday and they come and there's no food. And they've forgotten how to forage for themselves. They don't know how to do it anymore. They're so dependent on you. So they starve to death. So I do think that BirdLife, the big organisation, international, national, and we have a local group here, they all recommend you do not feed birds.
Yeah, that's right. And wires say the same thing. Don't
Wires
feed.
say the same thing.
So
So
there's-
these people are really close to the action and they can see what's happening to the populations of birds. And it's not pretty.
Yeah. So some of the other reasons, as well as the dependence aspect of it, is that they're not getting a balanced diet that way.
No.
And that they can spread disease. And in a minute, we're going to talk about one of the diseases which is spread in wild birds. But I particularly have a bit of a bee in my bonnet about bread. And I'm aware that lots of people who go to Lake Alex feed the ducks their bread. Bread is not good for any bird. There is basically no nutritional value at all in bread. And what it does is fill up their belly and stops them from going out and finding food that is more nutritionally balanced and natural. And in magpies in particular, it can get stuck in their beak, as can mince. Please don't feed Maggie's mince. Mince can get stuck inside their beak and it becomes mouldy and generates bugs and all kinds of things. And in the end, actually, they can kind of get a beak rot situation going on there. The other thing about mince for magpies is that it contains no calcium, and calcium is an essential element of their intake. So please
For
avoid
their bones.
That's exactly right.
Yes.
Particularly if if it's going to be provided to their young who are developing and so on. So please avoid mince. Please avoid bread in any circumstance. So another problem with feeding birds is that lots of us are feeding some of the really abundant birds and they are flourishing in the area. So for example, the sulphur-crested cockatoos and the corellas do not need any of us to be providing them with food. Their numbers are increasing significantly. They're competing for hollows in the area with lots of our other more precious birds. We don't want the species that are really flourishing and doing well to get even more food.
Well, it's putting everything out of balance, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a good description. Thanks. And that applies too to the rainbow lorikeets. It's part of the explanation for why their numbers are increasing in many urban areas because people are feeding them and other birds are suffering as a consequence of that. Food also goes off quite quickly when you're feeding birds. So if you're going to feed, please keep the area scrupulously clean, and if you put out fruit or any of those kind of things, change it quite often. And sunflower seeds, which are very popular with birds, aren't a great food. They're okay in very small quantities, but they're essentially all fat and nothing else in terms of nutrition.
Can I make a few suggestions for what you can do?
Yes, what you can do would be good. Go for it.
Well, what you can do is plant.
Yes.
And
Yes.
this is a panacea for so many things. If we want wildlife in the highlands, we need to start planting lots of natives. And nectar is not an easy thing for an animal to get. There are special nectar feeders, and you do see them sometimes in sanctuaries and in zoos. But on the whole, nectar is a very specific thing created by a flower.
That's right.
And surprise, surprise. And so if you can produce nectar in your garden, that is a real benefit to many, many of our birds. All the honey eaters are nectar feeders, and many other birds as well. And so I would suggest grevilleas.
Yep.
I would suggest grevilleas because you will always be able to find a species that is in flower all year round.
That's true.
They're always there. What you don't want is it's great to have, a great flourish of flowers and a lot of production of nectar. And we do get those great buzzy occasions when everything flocks to one of our plants. And that's great. But we need something all the time to keep them coming back and to sustain them through, the tougher times. And as I say, I'm a great believer in grevilleas because there are many that do flower through winter, through autumn. They do need full sun. Nearly all of them need full sun. But if you've got full sun, grevilleas is the go. And the other thing is Banksias, of course.
Yes, for sure.
And
Mine
they're
are
flowering
flourishing.
now.
Yeah.
They just produce nectar all the time.
I've got lots of honey eaters coming in at the moment to the Banksias.
Yes. Yeah. So those two are highly recommended just as bird food.
Yep. And what about grasses for the seed
finches?
eaters?
Yes, and a number of the crimson rosellas. I'd say they're a very good excuse for not mowing your lawn.
Yeah, that's a great. Couldn't agree more.
My neighbours are very, very busy with their lawns all the time. I have a partner who is a little reluctant in that department, and I'm not going to do it. And to tell you the truth,
I don't think that's about the birds, is it?
No, but the benefit is that there's a lot of crimson rosellas down the back that is just eating all the grass seeds.
Yeah.
They're very happy with that.
Yeah.